Hello, my name is Katie, and I am a person who has been a part of a ton of fandoms. But the number one fandom that has never left my heart has been Harry Potter. So, I wanted to talk today about what it was like to revisit Harry Potter as an adult. So, my story begins in third grade, and I was not allowed to read Harry Potter. My parents were kind of strict. Looking back on it, they probably weren't as strict as they could have been. Well, they weren't as strict as they could have been. But my mom was the one who got into Harry Potter, and she was like, well, you know what? This is actually okay. So I got to read Harry Potter, but I wasn't allowed to read it during the school year, so that was a bummer. But I read the first two that first summer, and I fell in love. And so that is where it all began. And then from there, it just kind of spiraled into what was in middle school like this huge, huge, huge obsession. Anybody who knows me, or knew me back then, I should say, knew and probably still knows that I had a Harry Potter shirt for every day of the week for a good 2 weeks. I had a lot of Harry Potter shirts, and I loved wearing them to school. I just felt so comfortable and happy in them, and I just liked showing off that I was a big Harry Potter fan. And I can't say that the fandom died down in high school. Um, as much. They were still coming out with the movies, and so that helped contribute to keeping the fandom alive in my heart. But when I got to college, things definitely died down because I went to a private Christian college, and I was like a big no no. And I even had somebody uh, ask me, how can you like this thing and Harry Potter? It just doesn't make any sense. Well, my first love is Harry Potter, but I also am a woman of many trades. I do love my fandoms. So, anyway, everything just kind of died down in college. The last movie came out my senior year of high school, going into my freshman year. So I had already graduated high school and was going off to college. So everything just died down, and I kind of let it go. Still loved Harry Potter. And then after probably my like senior year of college, and then after I graduated, it just kind of died down a lot more. And at one point I was like, do I even like Harry Potter anymore? But this past the past 2 months, I decided I wanted to revisit Harry Potter, the book world of Harry Potter. Now, I married a muggle. He didn't he hadn't seen, I think he said he saw like the first Harry Potter movie and that was it. And so I wanted to like catch him up so that we had, something that we could, not necessarily in common, not trying to make him like everything that I like, but we could like talk about things. I needed somebody to fangirl with and talk about things with. But and the funny thing is, we actually went to Universal for our honeymoon. And here I am crying at Harry Potter World, and he's like, Katie, stop. He did tell me that. And thankfully, we didn't have a lot of money. Else I would have spent all of the money that we did have. But I've been to Harry Potter World 3 times now, and I always get butterbeer. I have to get butterbeer. So that was one thing I definitely spent money on. I was really excited about that. But anyway, so marrying a muggle was weird. But I decided to go back and give it another go. I had listened, so I didn't read it. I didn't read them again because I do so much. It's not, I hate saying, oh, I don't have time, but reading is kind of physically reading is kind of just a last thought now. I listen to a bunch of books on tape, and I listen to a lot of podcasts too. None Harry Potter related, which is weird, but I think I'm going to try to get into some Harry Potter podcasts here, but I started listening to the audiobooks again. So I was an avid listener. um, so after I finished reading them, I would get them from the library. My brother would get them from the library. That's how he was introduced to them, other than the movies. So I would listen to them, and so I went back to that, and I remember falling asleep to Jim Dale's voice when I was a kid, and I'm like, well, you know what, this might help me sleep too. So I would like, now as an adult, so the past 2 months, I would listen to parts of it as I was working, because I work with my hands, I work by myself, and so I can I can listen, and thankfully so, otherwise it would be boring. So I have to do something to preoccupy my mind. So I would listen to however much I would listen to, and then go back, go to sleep, and then listen to Harry Potter. So Jim Dale's voice is very soothing to me, even as an adult. So that was how I went to sleep as a kid. And so I now, like I said, listen to the audiobooks. And there are a few things, probably more like a lot of things, that I noticed as an adult that definitely went over my head as a child. And like even in the movies, it wasn't quite as prominent. And I mean, they're movies. So I kind of wanted to talk about that, revisiting it and what I kind of picked up on more this time. And I guess now, spoiler alerts, because I will be talking about a few things that if you haven't read the books, if you haven't seen the movies, you won't know about. So, spoilers. Don't want to ruin it for you. Like one of my friends did in middle school. She ruined the 6th one for me. Thanks. Anyway. One of the first things I wanted to talk about, without getting too political, trust me, I don't want to, but J.K. Rowling really did a good job of making you think about race and how you interact with people who are different from you. They have the purebloods, which are a lot of the Death Eaters. Voldemort was a big proponent of the pureblood movement, even though he wasn't pureblood himself. You have the Half-Bloods, Harry. You have the Muggleborns, or the Mudbloods. And so I don't want to say it. I'll say that only one time. And so you have Hermione over there. And so how she broke down blood was a pretty... I never picked up on how important that theme was in the books until this go around, and it's probably has a lot to do with the climate that I am more aware of now as an adult, and I don't know, I just enjoyed listening to it and thinking like, holy cow, like this whole pure blood, half blood, Muggle-born thing is crazy and insane, but then you kind of look at it and it's like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. And so and that it actually changed my opinion a lot of Slytherins. I was just like, oh gosh, they're just horrible because they're Slytherin. And now I want to say pre-Battle of Hogwarts, they were bad for a couple of legitimate reasons. Not all Slytherins. So, but that's why I say pre-Battle of Hogwarts, because that's when it was really bad. When Voldemort was really coming back into power. So that was one big thing that I noticed, was the blood issue, and how I picked up on that more. Another thing, going back, listening to it again, now this is where the big spoilers come in, are the deaths and how I reacted to them this second go around. I think the death that I reacted differently to this time was Cedric's death. Now, cursed child aside, I don't want to... Sorry, I know that's such a strong feeling, but I I guess I'll have to see Cursed Child at some point. I'd love to see it, but I just can't. I don't like to think about it. So just going by the 7 books, Cedric was such a nice guy. And just hearing his death and how sad, it was just so sad. Now, I did have a horrible reaction when watching the movie, but that was because they like panned in on Cedric's dad and he had this scream of agony. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he just lost his son, and so that hit me really hard. So Cedric's death was a hard hitting one because I actually really paid attention to his character, and I'm like, yeah, he's really, this is so unfair. Come on, Voldemort, you're terrible. You're terrible anyway, but come on. And then a couple of deaths that I didn't react to in a sad way. So this one was kind of interesting. Dumbledore. Probably because I've really made my peace with it, but just listening to the 6th book, especially, everything just kind of comes together. And so as I know what happens and I'm listening to it as it's happening, it all comes together and it fits really well. And I have to stop and as I was listening to the part of Dumbledore dying and seeing Snape's reaction and how their eyes like meet and Snape does it and it's like, oh my gosh, like Snape didn't want to do it, as and Harry saw something completely different and we saw something completely different reading it the first time and then going back and listening to it again. It's like, oh, it all makes so much sense. Realizing that that was the plan all along, and Dumbledore was ready. Dumbledore knew. Snape knew. It sucked. Snape didn't really want to do it that way, but he knew it had to be done. And it was, all for the greater good. And so I liked that. I liked knowing and being able to just like see it all come together again from a different perspective. And a third death that I reacted to differently was Snape's death. So I was in the camp of Snape's okay. Snape's an okay dude, blah, blah, blah. And then I went back and as I'm listening to it, I'm like, I hate Snape. Snape is horrible. What? Ew. Like, Snape is so mean to Harry. Nobody does anything about it. Like, Harry doesn't go to anybody. Nobody tries to stop him from his senseless meanness to Harry. Harry is stuck up in some ways. He has this teen angst going on that I don't quite understand. But still, Snape was just mean. And Harry didn't know why. Harry didn't know why until after Snape had died. And in fact, he probably didn't really put too much together immediately other than, it is now time for me to die. So still, he didn't get why Snape was so mean. And so, not that I wanted Snape to die, because I would have actually liked to have seen a redemption arc in him being alive. As I was listening to him, like, oh crap, if he would have just found Harry before Voldemort did, he could tell him, because I think that was probably his plan. I would have loved to have seen that played out without him dying. But I just couldn't help but think he was just such a jerk for no reason. If he would have just come out and said, I loved your mother, I'm sorry that I'm so horrible, but every time I see you, I think of her and I get mad. It's a hard conversation to have, but he probably should have, because this is a freaking minor. So anyway, Harry's been through enough Snape. That was mean. I know that I also feel like Alan Rickman did such a great job playing him. I love Alan Rickman. And so it's kind of hard to separate the two. And say, well, no, my love is for Alan Rickman, not the character of Snape. Little caveat, Snape was brave. So don't fight me on that. Just these are just some things that I noticed, and some things that had changed. Now nothing changed when Fred died. So I cried again. I was so sad. I hate that one. I will always hate Fred. That one probably hit me the hardest. Was Fred's death. There, it was. Come on, why? Hedwig, pretty much the same reaction. Dobby, pretty much the same reaction. My husband makes fun of that death, and I could just. Well, anyway, and then I guess the last thing that I noticed that I didn't really notice going from the first read to now as an adult is the power of love that J.K. Rowling puts into the books, and how important it is to not only, familial love, the love of the mother, so the love of Lily that protected Harry for all of those years, but also we should probably love each other. Voldemort didn't have any love, but I don't know if Voldemort was really capable of love. So how it's important that we, be kinder. And I think that's a pretty good message, especially now things feel so bleak, and it wouldn't hurt to put a little bit more love out there. So anyway, those are just a couple of things that I noticed from my revisiting of Harry Potter in my adult life. I probably will never stop loving Harry Potter. I have all of this stuff. I have this stuff that I have on right now, stuff behind me. I have more. I still have all of my Harry Potter shirts from high school. So, I will probably give those to my kids, because I plan on, if we have kids, they're going to be reading Harry Potter. The second I find out, I'm getting the Harry Potter illustrated books, and that is happening. And so it will live on, hopefully. So anyway, thanks for watching. I have been thinking about doing this for a while, and I just like to talk about, stuff that I like. This is different from my first video, and I don't think it hurts. And so if you liked, please like. Like the video, comment, do something. If you disagree, that's fine. I'm not going to argue, but definitely talk about it. But be kind, please. I enjoy seeing, different opinions, and that's cool. But this, like I said, this is just me going back and things I didn't really notice. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Goodbye.